over there.
News from the region.
Did you check the Lakeland Ledger?
And from around the state. It's Florida Focus.
Good evening. Thank you for joining Florida Focus. I'm Chris Futrell.
Being a Florida Focus producer means that you really need to know what's going on in the news, and you have to be aware of what our viewers at WUSF, what they want to hear about. That means political stories, education stories, and healthcare stories. So in that sense, Florida Focus is a little bit different than a traditional newscast. As a producer, your day starts really early in the morning with your morning call to the professor when you're talking about what's going on in the news that day, but you're also constantly checking throughout the day to see what's breaking, and even at the last minute with your rundown completely done, your show could change if there's breaking news. Once you get to the newsroom, you know what stories you want. You also have to rely on your news team to also look through the news and decide if there's anything else that you missed in some of the local newspapers. At that point, you're deciding what goes into the newscast and what can sort of be left out that day and how long each story is going to be so that your show times out, because there's no plus or minus 15 seconds here. Your show has to be exact. You're really determining content, you're writing stories, you're creating rundowns, you're creating graphics orders. As a producer, you're working really closely with your team and you're motivating them, and you're making sure that your field reporter for that day is getting a good story, and you're making sure that the stories that are written are properly written and that they're timed correctly. So there's a lot of management that goes on, and there's a lot of trust that has to happen between you and the news team.
Every day we get to the meeting and we pitch stories, and we don't just pitch stories from the newspaper, we also enterprise our own stories. And so you get there every day and you pitch your stories to the producer as they write them up on the board. Make sure you wear the proper colors, jewel tones, bright colors. Your makeup alone, it can be expensive. It's MAC makeup because it's 4 HD cameras. So once you get ready for the newscast, you need to start going over your scripts, and usually producers will come in and time you to make sure that the newscast is on time. You need to enterprise your story. You need to go out, shoot your interviews, shoot your B-roll, come back, edit it, and throw it all together in one day. And this really gives you great experience to what it's going to be like out in the real world. Once you're done editing your package, you're still not done. You still have to write a web article that goes more in depth.
Being on the production side of Florida Focus, you have to do many different types of jobs. There's directing, technical director, graphic/tape operator. You do camera in the studio, and you also run the audio board. You basically just look at the rundown and decide, what you're going to do technically for the show. Then the script will come in, and you take the script and you have to mark the script, decide when to take certain shots, when to roll, and to take if there's going to be video in that day's newscast. Technical directing is the person that basically, you're basically touching different buttons, picking the next shot, bring in a lower third, bring in an over the shoulder, take the next shot, dissolve to the next shot, ready the next shot. It's just a lot to do, and it's hard to really get your composure and breathe when you're doing it because the director's calling everything one after the other, and you just got to make sure that you hit the correct buttons, because there's a lot of buttons on the switcher, and if you hit the wrong one, you have to start over and do it all over again. It is your job as the graphics operator to go on the internet and find different graphics for the over the shoulders. And then when you're on camera, basically you're in the studio with the anchor, you're on the headsets listening to the director as you cue the anchor when to read. Well, definitely being on the production crew, the most important thing is to be able to work well with others. There's 5 of us that are in charge of making the technical aspect of the show run smoothly, and if you can't work well with others, and if you're not being a good team member, it ain't gonna get done.
The web producer is the person who uploads the show to the MassCom WUSF website, and it requires a variety of subtasks, one of which is you need to get a close-up shot for the day's video and need to digitize that and then upload that to the website. You also need to encode and, of course, capture the episode, and keeping in mind your tasks, not at the end of the show when everything's done, but throughout the show, and that'll just make your job a lot easier. Since we are definitely more and more moving to the multimedia environment, it's essential that you have a familiarity and a comfort with dealing with the web.
Thanks for watching Florida Focus. I'm Chris Futrell. Join us again tomorrow.